likely has been sprayed with synthetic pesticides, chemicals, which, by the way, if you were to drink a glass of those chemicals, would probably make you very sick or even kill you. But for some reason, it's okay to spray a little bit on your food. It's been irradiated with radiation. Can't talk about how that's bad enough, right? It's had synthetic chemical fertilizers used to grow it. It's been genetically modified, and we'll talk about that shortly, inshallah. Or actual sewage has been used on it. Ooh. So, Monsanto, which is one of the big companies that produces a chemical we're going to talk about later, they wrote an article to try to smear organic. They said, oh, well, when we did a test of like an organic apple versus a conventional, by the way, conventional is the one that has all the stuff done to it, apple, we found that it had the same basic vitamin mineral content, right? So there's no difference between organic and conventional. That may be true. An organic apple and a conventional apple may have the same vitamin and mineral content, but one has been hosed down with pesticides, grown with sewage, synthetic fertilizers, irradiated, so forth and so on, and the other one hasn't. Okay, and that's the important thing to understand here. Whether or not it has more vitamins and minerals is irrelevant to the other things, and that's what they don't mention. So that's important because you're putting that in your body. Your body is going to it's going to take on what you eat, and it's going to store it in your body, all of those chemicals, and they're not good for you. By the way, this is just a price chart showing you the differences between a conventional and organic in terms of price. And we're not talking about huge differences here, except when it comes to things like, specialty items like maple syrup. Milk, yes, is more expensive. And, things like peanut butter and spinach, right? But for other things, it's not a huge difference between organic and non-organic. Okay. And then there are certain types of vegetables and fruits that are not heavily sprayed. And you don't necessarily have to buy them organic if you don't have the money to. But there are certain ones that you should always buy organic, right? Like grapes are a great example, strawberries, spinach. I mean, these things you must. Okay, what about when it comes to meats? Okay, so we all know that there's the halal meat, right? The animal's been slaughtered in the name of Allah, and that makes it halal, right? But is it also organic? Okay, so there's an example on the screen here. This is a famous company, Midmar. There's other ones that are out there, but they have, hand slaughtered halal meat that's also organic. When you go to the, Muslim butchers, you typically will not find organic. You'll just simply find what's called halal. And I talked to the butchers at these stores and they said, look, no one asks for organic, so we don't carry it. What needs to happen in the Muslim community is people need to go start asking for it, because what's happening is that the halal meat we're buying, only one aspect of it is halal, meaning its throat was cut and someone said, Bismillah, Allahu Akbar. But how the animal was raised, it was fed genetically modified food with pesticides in it. It was shot up with antibiotics and hormones and drugs. It was, raised in a factory where it never saw sunlight, right? It never got to walk on grass. It spent its whole life in a cage. I mean, these are common industrial farm practices. All of them would, at the very least in Islamic law, be considered makruh, hated by Allah, right? Hated. I mean, that's what it means. So when you buy organic, this is closer to what we would call halal and tayyib, which we'll mention at the end of this presentation, inshallah, meaning that something is been slaughtered properly, but also raised and fed according to Islamic law. Okay? So there's another place you can go find this type of meat. And I'm not advertising anybody's business here. I'm just telling you where I found some. This is Halal Pastures. They also have this. So when it comes to milk and especially meat from cattle, so we're talking goats, sheep, beef, you also want to get grass-fed. Okay? What does grass-fed mean? Well, typically today, a lot of animals are fed grains. Okay? And while grains can be a nice treat for an animal, their primary diet needs to be uh, ebba, as the Quran describes it, right? Grasses, things that these animals normally graze on. And so you can actually find things that are grass fed milk, and grass fed beef, grass fed lamb, grass fed chicken. Okay. The reason you want to get that is because it plays a big part in the fat content and the health of the meat. When cattle is primarily fed grains, it produces a type of fat that is not good for the human body to consume. Okay. Once again, not bad to give animals grains as a treat, but not their primary diet. Whereas cattle who eat grass only, they have a better type of fat in them that's more healthy. We do see a lot of times in the Muslim community, a lot of heart disease, clogged arteries, all kinds of things. So it's important for us to understand that we want to have the right type of fat ratio and cholesterol in the meat and milk that we're drinking. And we're going to get that from grass fed, not from primarily grain fed. What about this symbol? You've probably seen this before, fair trade. So when it comes to imported foods, chocolate, coffee, tea, sugar, mangoes, bananas, right? A lot of times we get these things and we'll see this symbol on it. So what does this symbol mean? So it means that in the process of getting that import into the United States, right, there are 10 basic principles that have been ensured. Number one, opportunities for disadvantaged producers. So people who own and grow on these farms, right, they're given extra opportunities. Transparency and accountability, making sure that there's fair weights and balances that are used when purchasing and importing, right? Fair payment, that the workers are paid properly. No child labor, no forced labor, right? So Muslim children in West Africa aren't picking the cacao that I'm going to eventually put in my chocolate bar, right? No woman is being forced to go out and work for $1 a day or something absurd like that, which actually happens. Good working conditions, right? The building is at capacity, right? Respect for the environment, right? These are the kind of things that the fair trade symbol looks for in an organization that has imports. Why would this even be necessary? Because the reason your bananas are so cheap and your sugar is so cheap and your mangoes are so cheap is because all along the process of getting it here, people are getting ripped off and facade is being caused, right? So we don't have the same growing standards in other countries that we do in America. So a lot of American companies will take advantage of that and they'll grow their products in other countries at substandards, right? And then they'll exploit the workers and they'll put them in bad working conditions and they'll rip them off, all to get that import into this country cheap and fast, right? So when you buy fair trade, you're like that person who's benefiting everyone while you eat. Remember, mustarihun wa mustarahun min, relieved or relieving, right? So when you drink your tea, you drink your coffee, you eat your sugar, you have the fair trade, you have the organic symbol on your food, right? That means to some extent you're trying your best to make sure that you're not contributing to the corruption of modern food while you enjoy your food and drink. What about this one? We talked about how non-organic food has been genetically modified. So we have the non-GMO symbol. Okay. Well, why, is Brother Isa against science? Like, no, of course not. Right. We have something called natural selection where we go out into our apple field and we see that one apple tree produces bigger apples than the rest of the apple trees. So we take all the seeds from that crop that year of the big tree and we plant them in our field for next year so that all of the new apple trees come from the apple tree that produces the biggest apples. Now our entire apple crop will be bigger next year or in 5 years, whenever it starts to produce apples, right? This is natural selection, right? It's just the scientific method. Nothing wrong with it. But GMO is something totally different. Okay? GMO is where scientists actually go into the DNA of a plant or an animal and they splice it with the DNA of other plants and animals to create like a Frankenstein product. And, I'm not here to say whether that's right or wrong, but I'd like you to understand why they do it to certain crops. When it comes to soybean, corn, sugar, and many other products that we consume a lot, the reason they genetically modify them is to produce what's called Roundup Ready products. What is Roundup? It is a chemical called glyphosate. Glyphosate is an herbicide. If you spray glyphosate on your lawn, it will kill absolutely everything on it, unless you have Roundup Ready corn growing in your lawn or soybean, because it has been genetically modified to be resistant to glyphosate. So it kills everything except the one that you want to grow. Well, someone might say, well, that's a great idea. That means that there's no competition, that corn will grow faster and bigger and stronger. Well, yes, that's true, but it's also going to have the glyphosate all over it. And that glyphosate is now going to be in the soil, and it's going to wash out of the soil into our drinking water and into other plants that it was not intended to be sprayed on. In other words, it corrupts everything around it. And when you eat that product later, you're going to be consuming that glyphosate. Are you Roundup ready? Did Allah make you resistant to Roundup? No, he didn't. So guess what? It's going to start having a negative impact on your health and the health of what grows inside of your digestive system, which is also not Roundup ready. You need the good bacteria inside of you to break down food properly and digest it. So when we see a lot of the countries that consume Roundup ready food, we find a lot of gastroesophageal reflux disorder, or reoccurring heartburn would be another way for it. Stomach cancers, colon cancers, all kinds of digestive problems. I wonder where that's coming from. Let's watch a video.
Can't hear you, Imam Isa.
Sorry, what was that?
Oh, I couldn't hear you.
Couldn't hear what?
No, not I'm able to hear you.
Were you hearing the video?
Oh, yes. Not this one, though.
The one I was just playing, you didn't hear it?
No.
Okay, let's start the video over then. All right, let me know if you hear it now.
This
Yes, I can hear it. Yes.
Monsanto's Roundup. It's in cookies, breads, corn, crackers, chips, breakfast cereals, and beer. The list goes on and on and on. The active ingredient in Roundup is called glyphosate, and it's used by backyard gardeners and industrial farmers alike to kill invasive weeds. And whether glyphosate is harmful to humans or not is something of a $66 billion question. But first, what is glyphosate?
There's never been a herbicide like it before.
Glyphosate was originally introduced in 1974 by Monsanto. Its use in American agriculture has soared nearly tenfold since Monsanto introduced the first genetically modified Roundup Ready seeds in 1996. Glyphosate is now used in more than 160 countries, with more than 1.4 billion pounds applied per year. And while Monsanto lost patent protection over glyphosate herbicides in 2000, the company still has about 40% of the $8 billion global herbicide market, because of what is called the, quote, virtuous cycle. Monsanto sells its genetically modified Roundup Ready seeds to produce cotton, corn, and other commodities to make them resistant to glyphosate's herbicidal effects. More sales of the GMO seeds beget more use of Roundup. More herbicide use drives up demand for Monsanto's GMO seeds. For 25 years, that cycle's enjoyed an unblemished run in our crops, soil, and food, until now. Now, Monsanto has its own invasive species creeping in. Doubt. On its website, Monsanto says glyphosate is about half as toxic as table salt and more than 25 times less toxic than caffeine. More than 1,000 farmers.
Oh, well, if that's the case, I guess I can just drink a whole bunch of it and eat a whole bunch of it like salt and caffeine, right? Actually, last I heard, it's not good to just eat a whole bunch of salt and caffeine all at the same time. But I don't know. We'll see.
And herbicide applicators stricken with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma disagree. Hundreds of plaintiffs with cancer have filed a class action lawsuit against the company. In 2015, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, known as IARC, determined glyphosate to be a probable carcinogen. Remember that $66 billion? That's where this comes in. It's how much Bayer is offering to buy Monsanto for. But if glyphosate is thought of as cancer-causing, it may back out of the deal completely. But what would life without glyphosate look like? According to Bloomberg agriculture expert Christopher Perella, it wouldn't be pretty.
The alternative would be a step back. And it would definitely affect farmers' income, their profitability, the way they do business. Eventually filters down to the consumer in terms of higher prices for meats, for all food products.
The question now, after the EPA's own handpicked experts have also voiced concerns, is what the Trump EPA will do about it. But with administrations from Clinton to Bush to Obama promoting GMOs, it seems unlikely Trump's EPA will be any different.
Very interesting. So the main argument being made here is, we have to use glyphosate. If not, then your food will be more expensive. Well, that may very well be true, but I want you to take in mind a principle, brothers and sisters in Islam. You can either pay for good food now, or you can pay for good health care later. Either way, you're going to pay. So even if the food prices were to go up when we stopped using this, our health would improve, right? And that makes us better worshipers of Allah. When we feel better and we're more healthy, we can do more, accumulate more good in this life, be more of a benefit to people around me. We can't do that when we're sick. So even the food may be cheaper, but our health is the cost we pay. So where do we find glyphosate? Well, just go to any restaurant, including a lot of the Muslim-owned businesses. And once again, I don't think any Muslim would knowingly give you this stuff. I don't think a lot of them know, and that's why these sessions are important. So you find it in so many things. You have glyphosate Roundup Ready soy and corn in your burgers and in your cheese and in your bread and in your colas and in your French fries and in your ketchups and mustards, right? It's in everything, right? So we're starting to understand now why modern food is full of facades. These people, they think they're doing good. Remember, they think, that nahnu muslihun, like we're making things better, right? We're making more crops and there's more, they're bigger and better. We've modified them, right? But Allah says, "Ala innahum humul mufsidun walakin la yash'urun." They're actually corrupting the food and don't realize it. And we have to be smart. Okay, what are some things you can do before Ramadan starts to get your body ready now that you know what products to choose properly? Okay, number one, when it comes to sweets, try to get out of sugar. Okay, sugar is very bad. We already mentioned at the beginning of this presentation about the Muslim sister who found out it was contributing to a lot of her health problems. Well, it's bad because it's, not fair trade most of the time. And it's also bad for your body for many reasons we can't get into today, but also because it's genetically modified a lot of times or hosed down with Roundup. Now, what can I use instead? Use honey, and specifically raw honey. And we're going to show you some examples here in a moment. Look up dates to get a lot of your sweets. You can use dates to cook and bake and make lots of things. You can use both honey and dates, right? But try to avoid sugar if at all possible. In this week coming up to Ramadan, you can go buy yourself some senna tea. Okay, this is something the Prophet ﷺ recommended that we drink at least twice a year. It helps clean your body out. Okay, drink it, when you have the next day available, right? Because it will cause you to need to go to the restroom. Now, that's a good way to help detox your body before you start the month. Or if you've been eating a lot of bad food, genetically modified, non-organic products, this will help clean you out. Okay. And, there's an important ayah in the Quran that illustrates why our presentation today is so important. Allah says, فَكُلُوا مِمَّا رَزَّقَكُمُ اللَّهُ حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا وَاشْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ إِيَّاهُ تَعْبُدُونَ. Eat from what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided you of the halal and tayyib, right? The permissible and good. And be thankful for the ni'mah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you if you are truly believers. Okay? Now, originally, I believe the main idea behind why this verse was revealed was to eat food that was purchased in a halal way, right? There wasn't haram money used to buy it. But today we see that this word tayyib takes on a new meaning, right? So we go to the halal butcher, we're buying halal meat, but is it tayyib? Has the animal been tortured in the process and fed garbage and been raised in a totally unnatural environment, which leads to stress hormones, and then you end up eating that, right? Is it tayyib? This is a question we need to ask ourselves now before we stand in front of the great questioner on the day of judgment to be questioned, right? So just a couple of things to understand, and then I'm going to show you some examples, real world examples of this stuff, is that brothers and sisters in Islam, do you know what goes on in the animal industry out here? So we all eat eggs, we all eat chicken, but do you know how that chicken got to you? I'm just going to give you one example, and I could tell you many, but they're so horrifying to learn that it's almost, I should put an age limit on this lecture if I tell you what's really going on in the agricultural business. It will horrify you. So when a chicken has an egg, it can be male or female. Females will lay eggs. Females also produce more meat. So what happens to the roosters, the male birds? Male chicks are considered an unwanted byproduct of egg production and are killed and disposed of shortly after birth. There's a machine on a conveyor belt that comes down, and workers check the gender of the bird. Is it a male or female? When they find out that it's a rooster, they throw it in a machine that grinds it up alive. Yes, that's what happens to them. Then the female bird is sent to a factory to be put in a cage about the size of its body, where it spends its entire life growing in a cage, never seeing the sunlight, never being able to scratch, or it's hurled together with thousands of other birds in a factory where it is fed hormones that cause it to grow so quickly that its legs can no longer hold its body and the bones literally break from the weight of the bird. I mean, really, we could go on and on and on. It's horrifying, right? And that's a lot of the chicken that we're finding in the stores. So just something to think about. Before I show you some real world examples, today's presentation is brought to you by Furqaan Project. Alhamdulillah, approximately 11 years ago, someone gave me the English translation of the meaning of the Quran as a gift, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided me to Islam that way. That's exactly what we do at Furqaan Project. We distribute for free the English and Spanish translation of the Quran all over the country. And I want to introduce you briefly to someone who we met 4.5 years ago. All right. Bismillahi walhamdulillahi wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmeen. We'll begin with God's blessed name. We praise him and we thank him. Yes. And we ask him to send peace and blessings upon the Prophet Muhammad. Yes. Now, today we have with us brother Today, and I didn't say those words back to back on purpose. His name is actually Today, but it's not spelled like T-O-D-A-Y, is it?
No, spelled T-A-D-A-E.
Okay. Now, brother Today has expressed interest in joining the faith of Islam, so we've gone through
explaining to him exactly what that means, and he seems to be very knowledgeable about what that means. So we encouraged him and invited him to come join the faith, and so that's what he's going to do right now, inshallah, God willing. So, you ready to say the Shahada?
I'm been ready. I'm ready.
Okay, so just repeat after me. I bear witness
I bear witness
that there is no deity
that there's no deity
worthy of worship
worthy of worship
except God.
except the mighty God, mighty Allah.
And I bear witness
And I bear witness
that Muhammad
that Muhammad
is God's messenger.
is God's messenger.
Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Okay, so now we're going to say it in Arabic. You ready?
Yes.
Ashhadu
Ashhadu
an la
alla
ilaha
ilaha
illallah
illallah
wa
wa
ashhadu
ashhadu
anna
anna
Muhammadan
Muhammadan
Rasul
Rasul
Allah.
Allah.
You said it perfectly. Allahu Akbar.
Akbar.
God is the greatest. Alhamdulillah. Congratulations, brother. You have accepted the faith of Islam.
So this brother, mashallah, he received a free copy of the English translation of the Quran from Furqaan Project after he had gotten in a gotten pulled over by the police and had to spend a couple of nights in jail. And he read Surah Al-Fatiha, and when he read Ihdina Sirat al-Mustaqim, guide us to the straight path, he said it was that moment in which he felt immediately attracted to Islam. So this is when he came out and he came to the Islamic Center and took his Shahada. Do you know what Brother Yusuf is doing today? He is the assistant imam of the Islamic Center of the Piedmont. Mashallah, I attended one of his khutbahs. It was the last khutbah I attended. And mashallah, the brother gave, the bayan, and then he did the entire khutbah in Arabic, right? And then he led us in salat, pronouncing Quran with tajweed and everything. Mashallah, imagine you were the person who sponsored the free Quran that he got. We distribute to over 1,000 prisons in the United States. And you can go right now to our website and sponsor Quran. We have a goal by the end of Ramadan to raise over $1 million so we can print 500,000 more copies to distribute all over the country. And these are going to go to dawah organizations all over the country. They're going to go to prisons, hospitals, dorm rooms, retirement communities. Go now and donate. You can donate a box for $104. You can donate 100 boxes. You can become a monthly donor and reach one of these large amounts in a year or 2 years or 3 years. Really would be great if we could get some people who would consider some of these amounts today. And if you want to do something even better than that, try going to our website, sendaquran.com, and you can actually send a free copy to your neighbor, classmate, coworker, customer, or patient. All you do is pay the shipping and handling fee. Okay, brothers and sisters in Islam, let me give you some real world examples of some things you can purchase at the store that will help you.
Shall I end this, brother?
Okay, so just a few examples in the real world. So here is some chocolate powder. Notice that it is organic and it is also fair trade. Now here we have some typical coffee from the Middle East. Notice there's no symbol on it. But here we have another thing of coffee that has the organic symbol, and it also has the it's also fair trade. So Equal Exchange is a company that does fair trade. So here we have some actual gluten-free flours, right? And notice that it has the organic label on it. It's vegetarian, right? Make sure that it's halal. Here we have honey. You can go buy at the store. Look, it is unprocessed and it is raw. Okay, raw and unprocessed. That means it hasn't been heated. It has all the good things in it. If you want to go find organic products at the store, what do? You look for things that they have 5 numbers on them. This is an indication that you're getting something that is organic. Okay. So we'll end today's session with a dua. اللهم إنا نسألك بأن لك الحمد يا حنان يا بديع السماوات والأرض يا ذا الجلال والإكرام يا حي يا قيوم اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم ربنا زدنا علما يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. اللهم أرنا الأشياء كما هي. اللهم يا مقلب القلوب ثبت قلوبنا على دينك. Oh Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to be among the people who are mustarihun. We are relieved of the hardships of this life and we enter into your mercy. And we seek refuge in you from being mustarahum min, people who are relieving the world, the trees, the animals, the plants, and the land of our wickedness. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to be people who eat what is halal and tayyib. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we ask you to take the knowledge that we've gained today, allow us to benefit from us and allow it to benefit us and allow us to change our habits. Ya Allah, we ask you to bless this month of Sha'ban. Allahumma barak lana fi Sha'ban wa ballighna Ramadan. Ya Allah, let us reach the month of Ramadan and let us come out of that month better than we were when we started. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا يا مولانا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.